Welcome to the Laws of Business podcast. Here, we will share the skills you need to make your business a success. Learn about goal setting, productivity, time management, marketing, and much more. Hear inspiring stories with today's best business leaders and join a hub of thousands of passionate entrepreneurs across the world. And now, here's your host, Jamil Jama.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Law of Business podcast. I'm your host, Jamil Jama, and today we have a real special guest, Kate Paine. And Kate Paine is a branding expert and a LinkedIn expert. And today I'm going to be interviewing Kate about personal branding, LinkedIn training, media coaching. How's it going, Kate?
Fine, thank you. Thanks for having me on your show, Jamil.
First of all, Kate, I want to thank you so much for taking your time to come on the podcast to share your story.
Yes, thanks. I love doing that. In fact, that's what I work with other people, is how to tell their personal story as it relates to their personal brand and business.
And you also help people to stand out online, to be different as well.
Yes, I do.
Which is cool.
As we know, the world of the internet and social media platforms, for sure, are very noisy places to be. Everyone is vying for everybody's attention. And so a lot of people are always trying to figure out a way that they can stand out from their competitors or from their peers.
Yeah.
And so I work with them to help identify their personal story to reinforce their brand so that then they can properly position themselves on various online platforms.
That's cool. And Kate, before we get to the question, before I ask you about your LinkedIn training and your media coaching, what is your backstory? Can you tell us from your story, your entrepreneur story, from when you started until where you are right now, please?
Sure. So I grew up in Vermont, and that's actually where I live now. I grew up in a very small town in rural Vermont. I went off to college in the late 80s to New York City, and I was majoring in journalism and mass communications. While I was at college, I actually had an opportunity to be an intern at the CBS Evening News. And at the time, Dan Rather was the anchor back then for CBS Evening News, which was, of course, seen all around the world. And I worked as an intern at the CBS Evening News for about 3 years. It was there that I realized that I didn't necessarily want to be an on-air journalist, but I definitely wanted to be working in media. I really wanted to be writing, and I wanted to be behind the camera, helping people tell their stories. So that was kind of the beginning, a long time ago, of why I wanted to get into communications and media. And as I got into the world of business over time, then I realized that there were a lot of business people out there, especially with the onslaught of social media and the internet, that really didn't know how to use the right tools to get their own story out for people to learn more about them, and to learn more about them in a way that is personal and interesting and captivating versus just the person's experience and their skills in their profession. And so that's when I decided to start standing out online. I really enjoyed working with women business owners who were starting up their own company or their own service business, and working with them to find resources for them to be able to showcase their services and talents both locally. And then I started working with people really all around the world.
So you see with standoutonline.com, you founded standoutonline.com. You founded standoutonline.com.
Standing Out Online. Yep.
Oh,
standingoutonline.com. Yes.
Okay, that's cool. Okay, what do business people need to do to stand out online?
Well, first of all, they need to be aware of what their personal brand is. And a lot of people will say, what is your personal brand? Well, your personal brand is really, truly your reputation. And your reputation includes your integrity, your values, and certainly the expertise for the work that you do. But to make your personal brand even more interesting, and knowing it's about your reputation, people want to get to know a little bit about the people they're going to work with. So being able to identify your story is very important. Just like you just barely asked me what my backstory is, I go through a similar process with my clients and the people I train to have them reflect on what is a little sort of nugget of their personal life. Sort of the nugget of my personal story was my internship at CBS News. That was really transformational for me. The other nugget was the piece about working with women business owners. So if people can think about their personal story and how they can identify it, that's really what I'm That's really what I'm driving at.
In the book, The 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene, have you read that book?
I have not. No, I've heard of it. I have not. It's on my reading list.
It's a cool book. It's difficult to read, by the way. I don't know how good of a reader you are. I'm guessing you're a very good reader, but it's quite difficult to read. But I enjoyed it, but it was difficult to read. But
difficult in what way?
It's just difficult to read. You have to see it. You have to see it to know what I'm talking about.
I'll look for it even harder now.
I can't. But it's good though. The content is good. I wouldn't advise it for beginners.
Okay.
For beginner readers. But in the 48 Laws of Power, the law number 5, he says, so much depends on reputation. Guard it with your life. And
yes.
So you define personal branding as reputation. What is personal branding? What do you define personal branding?
So the personal branding, if you really connect it to your personal brand, is you. So you should equal your reputation, right? So what you talk about with people when you see them out and about at a meeting or a conference or any kind of a mixer, or the type of if a person is seeing you through your blog or your content online, you want to make sure that however you're presenting yourself to your potential customers and professionals is the same way that you're presenting yourself as a person. So whether they meet you online or in person, who they meet is the same person that they see within their content and from their reputation. So basically, be who you are. So the things that you value, your actual values, your work ethic, things like that, that really makes up your personal brand. And then you add into that, of course, the expertise that you have. So the specific skill set you have, the superpowers that you have, that really make up your personal brand as well. But then this is where people really they stop there, and that's okay. But if you go even further to identifying your personal story and you tie that into your personal brand, then you've really created a nice little package of something that's interesting, relatable for your prospects or your clients, and informative so that they get a really good snapshot of who you are, what you represent, and what you're about. I can give you an example, if you'd like, Jamil, of how somebody can really identify their story, and it's really an essential tip that could help them. Okay, so the tip is, what I suggest is that people email 5 people with whom they have a close relationship with and respect, not necessarily family, maybe past employers, a past boss, a current colleague, something like that, where you've worked on various work projects together. Email them and ask them if they could name something that they see you do well and how they would describe how you do it. I can guarantee you that the kinds of feedback you'll receive will be unexpected. The way you see yourself and the skills you know you have is great. But if other people may see things in you that you just don't really pay attention to, nor do you reflect on and think about for yourself, the hardest person to promote is yourself. People really have a difficult time sort of tooting their own horn and making them be the person that you should come to resolve a certain problem that you seek, for which they are suited. So if you get 5 people to talk about 5 different aspects of how they see you, how they thought you did in a certain situation, then that's going to give you something to work with to really start to identify your personal story, how people see you, how people perceive you to be. And that's exactly what it is. It's about perception. How you're perceived is how you want your potential clients to perceive you too. And so relaying that through your story and your brand will achieve that.
Definitely. And can people do that on their LinkedIn profile?
Yes, absolutely. There's actually many places on the LinkedIn profile where that can stand out. It really is, and I just will say this, LinkedIn is really the best platform to be on to show your story and your personal brand. It's really, out of all of the social media platforms out there, it's the professional business network, so it's where you should be. It's appropriate. But it's also, they give you a lot of real estate, so to speak, online to be able to tell that story. So the headline, which is the 120 characters below your name, is a great place to tell your story because you can use keywords and search engine terms. The summary section, which is the biggest section, that's really the meat of your profile. There's 2,000 characters you have there. That's the place where you can tell your story and weave it into your professional life. And then in the description sections of the experiences that you list for the past job roles you've had is also a place where you can expand more about who you are, what you do, and how you do it.
I was going to ask you, how does someone stand out from LinkedIn? Is it just by telling their story, or is there other ways as well?
Telling your story, certainly in the conceptual way that I've discussed. But from a technical, tangible way, one of the things you really need to pay attention to are using the appropriate keywords and search engine terms, the types of terminology, the words you would type into Google, for example, if you were looking for someone like you. Okay, so people might not necessarily have your name when they're looking for you on LinkedIn, but they're doing a search to find someone like you in your specific industry. So, for example, LinkedIn expert is a term for my industry, for what I do for a living. And so people may not know Kate Paine, but they could type in LinkedIn expert, and my name would be more likely to come up. So you can.
That's because you're LinkedIn expert, isn't it?
Yes. But there's also the LinkedIn trainer, LinkedIn coach. Those are all kinds of terms that people use. And so what you should do is spend maybe an hour doing some research. You can use the Google AdWord tool, which is free, to test keywords and search terms for your industry, for your skill set, your super specific skill set in your profession, and figure out what those terms can be. And then sprinkle those keywords and search terms throughout the natural writing of your summary. I will say, write your summary in the first person. Keep it conversational. Keep it your tone of voice, an active voice about how you do things. And if you're using those keywords and search terms, then you're actually making the search algorithm on the back end really be able to let the robots find you and bring up your profile in the results for someone who's looking for someone like you.
If somebody wanted to find out more about how to stand out on LinkedIn, where can they go?
Well, I will say they certainly can connect with me on LinkedIn and can go to my website and sign up for my updates. I do have a newsletter. I don't inundate people's inboxes, but I do put out a lot of updates on how to use LinkedIn for personal branding, personal story. So they can find me on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/in/Kate Paine, KatePaine. But you can also just, Google how to use LinkedIn for storytelling too. Even just Googling things about personal story, there's ways that you can figure out how to determine that. What I suggest people do in their summary section exactly is to look at their summary as a 3-part recipe. Okay, people are invested in outcome. They want to know the problem that you solve and how you can solve that problem for them. They don't necessarily care if you've got 20 years experience doing such and such. They may not even care if you have a certain certification. They just want to know your approach, how knowledgeable you are about your topic, and how you can solve their problem to get an outcome that they need. So when you're writing your summary, think of it in 3 parts. The first part is you want to grab someone's attention. Tell a little bit of your nugget of your story that relates to your expertise and hook them in that way. The middle part of that recipe, the second part, is the part where you identify the problem that you're knowledgeable about. And then the third and final piece is how you resolve that problem for them. Readers want to walk away with how you can solve something for them.
Definitely. Because people want to know what's in it for them.
And then they want to work with somebody who they feel like they can relate to and self-identify with. And so that's part of the story coming in that sets you apart from others, because you've shared something about yourself that is of interest and compelling as to why you are the subject matter expert that you claim to be.
That's awesome, Kate. Thank you so much for giving us so much value. I wanted to ask you about your media coaching. Is LinkedIn also tied to media coaching? Can LinkedIn also be tied to your media coaching?
Yes. Well, first of all, if people have a really good, solid LinkedIn profile with a lot of information there and a lot of resources like video links and for people to see something like that, journalists, members of the media use LinkedIn as a resource all the time in trying to find people for even podcast guests like yours, Jamil. People can find out if they want to interview you to be on their TV show or radio show or in the news for an article or something like that. So
public relations. It can be used for public relations.
Yes, for public relations. LinkedIn can be a really great public relations tool for yourself. And if you work in PR, think about using LinkedIn as a resource for your clients. So when people come find you on LinkedIn or other ways, then what I do is I work with clients to coach them for the appropriate media that is going to be interviewing them. So for example, if somebody's going to be going into a TV studio, then I can even coach people on video, it doesn't have to be in person, on how they should sit, what to expect from the studio atmosphere, what the lighting is like, what's going on with all the machinery, and then practicing questions that the journalist may ask them so that they feel prepared ahead of time to be able to answer questions intelligently and with flair. So I help them with all kinds of media coaching like that, especially for radio and for podcasts also.
Kate, and thank you so much for doing this interview and taking the time out to share your story and to give us so much value.
You're very welcome, Jamil. Thank you so much for having me.
And before we go, Kate, where can you be contacted?
Well, you can find me on my website online at standingoutonline.com. On LinkedIn, you can just type in Kate Paine, Paine is the spelling. You can find me on Twitter at KPaine66. And you can also find me on Facebook under Kate Paine Associates.
That's awesome. Everybody, this is the Law of Business podcast. I'm Jamil Jama, and that was Kate Paine's story. Thank you all very much for listening.
Thanks for listening to the Laws of Business podcast. Find out more about us on thelawsofbusiness.com. Thank you for being a part of our journey.